I'll turn it over to Rob, who started surveying in 1985, and then he's going to have to finish his own bio now.
Okay. Yeah. So I started surveying in 1985, and now it's not 1985 anymore.
40 years
Uh,
later.
where did all the time go? Well, a couple years. First 3 years was in the field with City of Escondido in Southern Cal, and then 2 years in the office with the City of Encinitas in Southern Cal, and then Caltrans came a calling and dangled the opportunity to do some really cool stuff, and I jumped ship and went to Caltrans. So was there in various capacities for a little over 30 years. Um, did let's see, pretty much every kind of surveying that we do, and um, served as chief of land surveys for Caltrans in an acting capacity on a rotation for 5 months. At that time, I signed on the dotted line for mobile laser scanning, and brought in the first mobile scan unit to help keep our surveyors safe, and that was what it was all about. And retired from Caltrans at the end of 2020, and served as CLSA president in 2021, and BPEL's liaison, NCWS liaison, and um, just missed the actual day-to-day surveying and interacting with surveyors and solving problems and sharing knowledge. And my friends at Mark Thomas said, let's go out to dinner, let's talk. And they said, you want to join the green team? And I said, oh, hell yeah. So now I'm part of an all-star team, and it's an amazing place to be. So
And those conversations happened at a state conference, yeah.
uh
Started the conversation. So going back
yeah,
to kind of
there
the
were there
the
were
networking
numerous
aspect.
conversations at conferences and CLSA chapter meetings,
Exactly.
and um over lunches with guys that I meet from all these different events and things. And um yeah, the relationship that I built with the principal at Mark Thomas started through CLSA back in 2006.
And that was where I was going to go with that. Is I had recently presented in Oregon on the importance of networking, and so that's a lot of job opportunities, and those things all come from your networking events or your networking opportunities. You're volunteering on boards and state boards, right? So it goes back to kind of the power of networking. So that's where I wanted to go with that.
Okay. Hey Trent, I'm going to send you an email address. If you could send a link
Mhm.
to my buddy.
Tonight's meeting. Okay.
Yep. So he can get in because he's sending me text messages. I can't find the link.
Right on the website, but I will
Yeah.
shoot
Well,
an
there you
email
go.
right now.
I just shot it to you
Okay.
in
Got it.
your text. So,
Yep. I got it.
all right. So, how many people do we have on the call tonight? The show tonight?
16 at the moment.
16, because everybody is so excited about safety meetings.
I know.
And really, we should be, because you know, these are kind of the things I'm going to talk about. But the key is, why do we talk about safety? And the bottom line is, it's to have it in your mind. And so we go home at the end of the day. Eliminate workplace injuries and deaths. I presented this just last week at the Fresno State Conference. And one of the guys in the audience said, when I said, why do we talk about it? He said, so we go home with as many appendages as we started with and as many holes in our body as we started with, you know, no extras. But from the company side of things, we want to reduce company insurance premiums, both in work comp and in vehicular policies. And Trent, maybe you can share a little light on, well, why does the typical chainman who's driving a company truck, why does he care if your insurance premiums are high or low?
Yeah, right. It all comes down definitely to the bottom line, and the more insurance costs I've talked about it openly before, but we're close to over $750,000 a year in insurance, and
Jeez.
all in, right, between health and that kind of stuff. But
Yeah.
just down to the workers' comp and all that kind of stuff, it reduces the bottom line, and the cheaper we can have insurance premiums means more money back into somebody's pocket. So it's and of course, like you said, it's the importance of coming back home to family every night. That's the biggest thing,
Yeah,
more than the
100%.
monetary value.
100%. But the monetary value comes in there.
Sure.
I got a hell of a surprise after 35 years and more in public sector, was working for a private company, and at the end of the year there's an extra deposit notice in my direct deposits. Like, what the hell's this? I call up my boss. I'm like, hey, is there some kind of screw up here? He goes, I go, somebody sent me money from this company and I wasn't expecting this. And he said, no, that's called a year-end bonus. And that's a little something that you get here on the private sector that the public employees don't get. And those can be quite significant. If the company can save money, then it's good for us as employees, right? Yeah, we want to improve profitability, avoid fines, and the company image. I mean, you don't want your company, if you're the owner, to be known as, oh, the company where everybody gets injured, right? Because then nobody wants to work there. And there are times when you may be not eligible to work on certain projects because your insurance scores are too poor, right? So here's the key for our licensees. And great article in the link down in the corner is that it's a professional responsibility. So, aspects of risk management, and we're talking about safety, but you could also tie this into, theft or whatever, right? Is right here. When we talk about reducing risks, we're employing different technology like the mobile laser scanner for my Caltrans people. Now at Mark Thomas, we also have one to help keep our own people safe. When you transfer risks, that's your insurance. And when you retain risk, that can be thought of as your deductibles on your policies, right? And then once you go through all these steps, you go to the monitor and evaluate the program and go back up to the top. Great articles in the Cal Surveyor magazine, 149. Who sees a potential problem here? Okay. Although it's a different site, the results that I saw in my mind, when I looked at this photo, is the result on the right side, right? I mean, we don't have photos of that from the left, but it's certainly a possibility. Right? Common safety concerns, right? All these things. We're going to touch on all of them. Your commute to and from your projects is dangerous, right? do what you can to reduce that, right? Do these things. Let's stop with this one. Everybody speeds now and then. Some people drive like it's Grand Theft Auto in real life. And uh, at the presentation the other day, one of the gentlemen in the room said he had been driving for 71 years. So I asked him if drivers and traffic situations are getting better, safer out there, or worse. And he just laughed and said, it's way worse. And if you drive 80 miles an hour instead of 60 miles an hour, how far do you have to go to make up any significant amount of time? Or if you get stopped behind one red light, that difference, if you're only going 10 miles, you just ate that difference and you had all that excess risk. Another thing to think about is vehicle certifications. When vehicles are crash tested, they're crash tested at either like 35 or 40 miles per hour. If you go from 35 miles an hour to 70 miles an hour, you've doubled your speed. And if you remember back to your physics classes, or maybe you didn't take them, but you remember the equation E equals mc squared, the C was the speed, right? Speed of light. The energy, the big E, varies with the square of the speed. So if you go from 35 to 70, you've doubled your speed, but you've 4 times the energy. So a car that survives a 35-mile-an-hour crash testing may be just a cloud of dust at 70. Right? Don't run red lights. Of all things, in my hometown, in my town here where I live, a, a we had power outages because of high winds. The stoplights, the traffic signals were flashing red. Of all people to not know what that meant, a tow truck just went blowing through the light because, oh, it's red. Oh, now it's not red. Now it's red. Now it's not red. And he just went. He hit 2 other cars. Now, I don't know if that's a special way they have of generating business, but it was bad form to say the least. Um, don't go blowing red lights. Make full stops. Watch for pedestrians. Do all the things you're supposed to do. Make it easy on yourself. Drive defensively. I saw a motorcycle coming up on me, and I was in a 60-mile-an-hour zone, and I was speeding because I wasn't behaving the way I should have been. But I spent a lot of time out on the freeway, on foot, doing topo, doing control work, doing construction staking. I know what a 70-mile-an-hour pass looks like. I was doing 70. The motorcycle passed me like he was passing me at 70 miles an hour, and I was standing still. I think it was one of those Hayabusas, big fat tire uh, speed machine, and the guy had to be doing 140. And when I got up the road, there was a bunch of stopped traffic, and there was a debris field, and a couple people standing around a guy in a helmet laying on his back on the asphalt. You know, got to watch out, got to take care. And don't drive distracted or impaired, right? Don't use your cell phone. Don't be drinking and driving. There are a lot of people that don't even drink or that are very well, um, I guess, self controlled. So if they're going to be out being the designated driver, They don't have anything. Many, many years ago, when I was but a pup, I think I was about 24 or 25, my roommate and a bunch of friends took one of the friends' mom's minivan, went down into San Diego and hit the night spots. And they had one girl who was going to be the designated driver. And when they got to the end of the night, my roommate realized that somebody had been slipping the designated driver rum and cokes all night, and she was plowed. And everybody was trashed. And rather than call me to come down there and leave a vehicle and drive them back or get somebody else who wasn't drinking, my roommate took a chance and drove everybody back home. And it was a big chance. I could have ended up with 6 dead friends, but he got lucky. He didn't get caught. So,
Rob, you got a link on there. Go back one slide. That YouTube video. I just
yeah.
pulled up that YouTube video. Do you want to? I can share it in the link, but you want to talk about that video?
Is it the
Grader-
vehicle hitting
The
the
grader.
striper? Yeah.
Holy
So
moly!
what you can control, right? Do all those things. And what Trent was talking about is look at
Oh,
this debris field. That was a 3/4 ton pickup truck. On the right side is the left rear wheel and the right half of the bed of the truck. Just about in the middle is the transmission and part of the engine. And what's missing is most of the cab and the entire front, front suspension and stuff. Um, this is on a 73 toll road. There was a Caltrans blade, a road grader, parked on the side of the freeway in the median, and it was hit by this pickup truck. And this is one of those roads where typically I think it's a 65-mile-an-hour zone. Typically people go, let's just say somewhere between 60 and 90 most of the time. So if you think you're safe because you don't drive a Nissan Sentra or a little Kia Optima or something, and you drive a 3/4 ton truck, take a look at this. Slow down. There's a link to it. It'll all be in the thing. I'll just give this to Trent. You guys can use this, share it with anybody you want.
yeah.
Things you can't. Yeah. Go ahead, Trent.
I'll throw it in the Dropbox folder
Yeah.
for this session.
So, right. All these things. These are all keys, right? There are some cool technologies that cost a lot of money to put out there, uh, like a kind of a loud horn thing with a sensor that lets you know when traffic goes busting into your work zone if you got an area that's coned off. Of course, we got the magic cones that we hope will keep vehicles out of our work zone, but sometimes it doesn't work that way because the vehicles don't know about the magic. But something that I've asked of NSPS is to work with ways to try and get Surveyor on as an option so people can can put us in, or you can put yourself in if you're going to be working by the street. Right? Who recognizes a problem here? Anybody see it?
Right. Nobody looking at traffic anywhere around.
You got two people out there. You're on a center line stripe. It's not even a painted median. And the guy that's holding the rod, he looks like he's probably been doing this for 40 years, 30 anyway. How many times do you think he's dipped a manhole? More than just a couple, I'm guessing. But he's got to be looking down in the manhole while the other guy's taking the dip measurements, right? So if you're the person that's supposed to be looking, you better be looking for traffic. Okay. The manual on uniform traffic control devices, there's a California edition. Oh, it's actually the 2014 edition, revision 8 draft is available on the Caltrans website at that link. Articles on POB online. I don't even know if that works anymore, but there's specific things about how to set up a closure for a survey crew. It looks like that for a on centerline closure. Those guys didn't have anything like that, right? Well, give people a little warning that you're out there because they're not looking for you. And here's the zillion notes that you don't even want to read when you got to put this stuff up, right? If you got to work on centerline, build that into your bid. Yeah, it takes time, it takes money. Get paid for it. Anyway, more on MUTCD. And anybody see a problem here?
Missing quite the transition.
That's one of those, that's one of those hard transitions. Hopefully they had a couple more signs before you got here. But if not, I think that row of cones, that truck, the next truck are all going to get pushed into the Tahoe with the police lights on it and probably into the people down the road a ways, right? It's just too nasty. When you're on construction sites, these are the things that you got to look at. And because anybody seen my thing on statistics, you know I love statistics. Roadway construction worker fatality trends. 2005 was a really bad year. 165 nationwide roadway construction workers killed. And then there was some stuff to try and make things better, and it got better for a while. And then it got worse, and then it got better. And, surprisingly, it only went down to 29% reduction compared to 2005 in 2020. It's insane. There were still 117 people killed on the highways, construction workers on the roadways killed in 2020 when the roadways were almost empty.
That's what I was just going to say. When there was no cars, yeah.
Yeah. But part of the problem is people are hauling ass, and they really haven't thought about it. It seems to say, we're in 2025 now, and there's as much traffic as there was before 2020, but I'm still trying to drive fast. One of my buddies has a 911 S4 something, I don't know, something super zoomy. And he was telling me that during COVID, when the freeways were empty, one morning he had to go into the office, and he took the 911. He's doing 165 miles an hour. Not recommended.
Hey, will you go back one slide again? And then one thing, Matthew, if you can throw in the chat, maybe how long did you have to spend in the hospital? So Matthew was hit by a car in 1999, coned off, wearing his vest and everything. But
Magic codes didn't save you, Matthew.
yeah, exactly. Um,
No, they didn't save me. I was X-rayed. I was really bruised, but it didn't hurt me too bad. Just my back and elbows got really badly bruised.
Wow.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, I was talking with one of our guys who has been a survey technician working in the office for us, and he was going out into the field. And I talked to him he was supposed to start on a Monday, and I was talking to him on Friday night. And he said he was nervous. And I said, well, have you been in the field before? He goes, oh, yeah, I got 5 years of time in the field. And I said, well, you're going to be working with this chief. He's really, really sharp, and he has a great handle on how to make the equipment we use really sing. And you'll pick up on that pretty quick. He goes, yeah, that's not really what I'm nervous about. He said, last time I left the job site, was in a helicopter.
Oh, jeez.
And went to the trauma ward.
But
And I don't know how many months he was out, but I think he had 11 surgeries. So, yeah.
oh, on this slide I made you go back on, I was just reading the footnote there, casualties causes, but 62% of those were either run over, back overs, or caught between or struck between equipment. So
Yeah.
that's pretty powerful stat there, 62%, because that's just goes back to your other slide of nobody looking for traffic around them, right? And so
Absolutely.
those 62% would having an extra pair of eyeballs, going back to a two-man crew situation, right? And
Well,
in the safety
even,
aspect of that. So
yeah, even take it from 62% and look at the last one is
yeah,
14% more, 76% caught between or
yeah,
struck by construction equipment and objects.
right.
All right, there's 76% right there. What are we doing?
Mm-hmm. By just having an extra pair of eyeballs looking all around you at all times.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And how many people are out there going solo operator?
Yeah.
You're kidding, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Before you move on,
Yeah.
George threw in the chat, which is a very good point. One of the traffic problems I see is there isn't enough law enforcement over traffic laws anymore. Police are busy doing other things, so you rarely see anyone getting cited for traffic violations anymore. So, yeah, it's a good point, George.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes. I saw a pretty interesting one recently on the 10 near Palm Springs, um, where all of a sudden there were 4 highway patrol vehicles that went around me. And I thought, thank you for going around me. But they went around, and then all the traffic stopped. And it was a felony stop. They had the vehicles surrounding some guy that they'd pushed off into the dirt. And yeah, it looked pretty gnarly when I went past. I thought, keep my head down. You never know when the shots are going to ring out. So, who has it worse, man? The crossing guards, the guy with the stop slow paddle.
Mm.
You know, I remember that one of our people when I was working for Caltrans, and I believe it was during 2020 when everybody was frustrated about everything, that one of our stop slow paddle guys was shot at because he's holding a stop slow paddle and it was keeping somebody from getting to wherever they were trying to go. Paving operations are bad. Highway maintenance is tough. Laborers, A lot of laborers get hurt. Surprisingly, how many foremen, but operating engineers, that's equipment operators. But out here, local 3, local 12 is also our surveyors in California. So, yeah, bad stuff. Yeah, bounce this on. Let's see. So traffic patterns. Anybody that's doing heavy construction, take a look at the traffic patterns. Look at the haul roads. They can change any day. As you roll into a project, stop and look. If you got a place where you can see the vantage point of which way is the traffic pattern going, you want to figure that out, because some days these scrapers could be up the hill, and then next week they might decide they're going to come down that hill. And you don't want to be face to face with one of these guys. I have a personal rule. I don't play chicken with any other vehicle that has a stairway so the driver can get up to his cab, right? That's a recipe for disaster. And equipment, the visibility lines, the sight lines that equipment operators have, they're terrible. Absolutely terrible. Sometimes these scrapers are pushed by a second scraper, and even sometimes pushed by a cat. So even if the guy in the front sees you, he can't stop. If he was doing his best, he couldn't stop because he got two other vehicles pushing him. Right? And I've seen on areas with a maybe an 8 or 10% cross slope in the median and clay soil. When it's wet, it gets slippery. I've seen these cats with the back half slid out about 8 feet off of the track of the main wheels. So it's gnarly. These just give equipment a wide berth. Trenchers and shoring is always a problem. Anybody see this problem? I don't know who the guy is in the trench, but there's not enough money to pay somebody to do that. How about this one? Here's a track hoe, and he's cut a vertical face right below his tracks. That's just waiting to go over. You definitely don't want to be walking along underneath, down below there. Cranes and pile drivers. Just say no. My rule is estimate the height of that crane boom, multiply it by 2, stay that distance away from the crane. And on YouTube, Big Blue Crane. Minute and 16 seconds is enough to let you know all there is to know about cranes. Snags, trips, and impalements. These are rebar in a foundation sticking up, concrete foundation, and the orange things are safety caps. And if you don't know what an impalement is, that's an impalement. Now, obviously, this is a staged photo and he's got safety caps. Otherwise, that rebar would be going through him like a shish kebab. Biting, stinging, irritating, right? All these different things.
While you're on that, so obviously I do some hiking and stuff like that. And there was a gentleman on one of the trails where he had his headphones in listening while he was hiking and was bit by a rattlesnake because
Oh,
he didn't hear that. So one of the obviously we talk about it from work site safety as well. I mean, not having your headphones in, going back to that 62 or 76%, right? Having headphones
yeah.
in can get you run over as well. But um, on the hiking forums, they talk about the gentleman that was bit by the rattlesnake, and I mean, he ended up making it, but it took quite a few vials, and somebody was fairly close by within a couple minutes to get him through a 911 call. But again, going back to you could just be walking, right? Walking down a trail or walking to a survey monument, have your headphones in and get bit by a rattlesnake because you're not hearing that rattle. So
Hmm.
while you were on that spot, I wanted to bring that up. So
Great point.
yep.
It's has everybody on the call heard a rattlesnake rattle in person?
Yeah, yeah. Couple hands for sure.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely will.
And how high did you jump? Because I know the first time it happened to me, I jumped 2 feet vertically and
Yeah, exactly.
3 feet horizontally the opposite direction and rotated 180 degrees in midair.
Hmm.
It looked like a Bugs Bunny cartoon where he comes up out of the hole and his feet are going 100 miles an hour before he hits the ground.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Yeah, that was a pretty important thing. So when you talked about that, and then the other one,
absolutely.
Steve Martin threw in the chat that Lyme disease has a huge impact on your health as well.
Yes, and you get that from ticks, and that's in the middle of the third line or the end of the third line.
Hmm.
Yeah, Lyme disease is super bad. And so there's a bear looking through an instrument,
Yep.
and there's bees swarming a Leica instrument, and then all the, poison oak, poison sumac, poison ivy, all the nasty things, oleander, mushrooms, choya. How is it that these things jump at you? You don't even get to really get next to them, and it seems like you get them.
Hmm.
You know? Um,
That's why we always we always have a set of tweezers or pliers in our vest when we're out because that stuff is just, I mean, it gets on the back of your boot and then you smack it into the back of your calf and you try to
oh
get it out and then it gets in your hand and then,
yeah, yeah. And then, does everybody recognize the Century Plan over on the left side of the screen there? When I was a young boy, before I got into surveying, I was probably 18, 19 years old. Went over to help my buddy whose mom wanted some plants dug out of her yard. And it was summertime and the weather was awesome. And so we were working in just shorts and no t shirts and um, tennis shoes. And we went to cut out one of these century plants and it was tough to get at. And then he realized, wait a second, I think I have about a 20-inch electric chainsaw in the garage somewhere. And he went in and found it and proceeded to go at this thing with a chainsaw, which spread little chips and bits of gunk and goo all over both of us, all over our chest, arms, face, as you're trying to grab the pieces and pull them out of the way. And after a couple of minutes, I realized that all of a sudden I was catching fire because these things have a nasty, I don't know what you'd call it, like caustic, stinging sap. And all of a sudden I'm going, ay, 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 ow, stop, 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 stop. And my buddy goes, what's the matter? And about that time, all of a sudden he realized, hey, I'm starting to sting too. And so we ran over to the hose and I grabbed the hose and tried to wash off everything that was stinging. But funny thing about water, it kind of is impacted by gravity. So the ouchy, ouchy stinging sensation that was all over my arms, face, and chest ran down. And boy, that was a really uncomfortable situation. I'll just leave it at that. Right. Anyway, pretty flowers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a Sean had thrown in the chat really quick about sorry, where did the chat go?
Yep.
Sean had thrown in the chat that he had encountered a timber rattler on the East Coast.
Ooh.
And he had filed a near miss report with his employer. So this is a good thing. That's why I want to talk about it really quick. But he filed a near miss with his employer, and luckily they took it serious and got him snake chaps as well after that. So and that's one of the things we do keep in our truck as well is snake chaps. So it when you're dealing with the desert, and I'm sure Will, I don't know if you have them or not, but it's definitely a lifesaver. And of course, like Sean being on the East Coast, timber rattlers and that kind of thing, super important. So snake chaps probably are another important safety item to be in the truck.
Yeah, and down south, don't they have cottonmouths
Oh yeah,
copperheads that are
up here in Connecticut too?
Yeah, copperheads. Yep, as we just said.
But they don't have rattles.
No, I was gonna say there's no sound to those.
No, you get no warning with the copperhead.
Isn't it? I guess it would be the smell, right? Isn't that how you kind of know there's copperheads in the area? The smell.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's what I've heard too. And it's like a super bad vinegar or something like that. But okay.
I think it would be how badly the more experienced crewmen are sweating because of the knowing they're there. So weather and environmental hazards, right? Use sunscreen. Everybody use sunscreen. Jay Seymour, CLSA president, back around, I don't know, 2010, 12, somewhere in there, 13 maybe.
He was with me 2015, 2016. Him and I were president together. So
yeah, so that was about the time that I think he went through his cancer and went through a whole bunch of surgeries, and luckily they took care of that for him. Heat exhaustion, heat stroke, drink plenty of water, stop for shady spots. In California, there's a requirement for people doing labor outside of 1 gallon, no, excuse me, 1 quart per person per hour of scheduled work, or a method of replenishing the supply. And ice does not count as water. So cold, hypothermia, and frostbite. One of my friends used to work on Long Island, and she got frostbite out there working outside one winter and said, screw this, I'm moving to San Diego. So lightning, that will be, if you were to be out with your rover pole and doing some fancy RTK stuff, and your RTK unit got struck by lightning, it would be very bad for the RTK unit. It would be very bad for you as well, most likely. So if you're out in those conditions, do something else. Wildfire, man, that's something we're dealing with out here in California right now.
No kidding.
And I've been on construction sites where the slopes had just been shot with straw bales to start putting a mulch down for the erosion control that they were going to spray on afterwards. And some kids were playing with firecrackers, and it was only 200 feet from my truck, and we heard pop, 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 and all of a sudden the straw was on fire. And they were up near about the midpoint of a slope, and on the other side of the slope was housing development. So the guy that I was working with, he and I just grabbed shovels and extinguishers out of both trucks, and we went out, ran up to this slope, and put the fire out and smashed it down with the shovels, and covered it with dirt, and made sure it was all out and nothing else was burning. But that would have been nasty. It's gnarly. Water requirements, I mentioned that. You got to have some kind of effective communication with the supervisor. And it doesn't have to be hot. If temperatures are over even 85, depending on where you are, that could be hot enough to be too hot for some of the people. So keep an eye on each other. I worked on a project in San Diego County that was, normally ambient temperature in San Diego is somewhere between 68 and 78 degrees. But we have these times when Trent sends the heat from Nevada and it gets up into the hundreds. And there was a laborer that had joined the construction company, and he was only in his, I think, second or third day on the job, and he had come from Oregon where it was normally 45 or 50 degrees and raining. And he's working in the hot sun, and it was up around 90, 95. And he was trying to keep up with the other guys and not stop and take a drink of water. And he went into heat exhaustion and heat stroke, and he died on site. And it was that fast. It was probably within an hour of when he first said something about, man, I don't feel so good. And he probably got from some of the other guys, hey, suck it up, man. It's not even hot out here. And he was dead within an hour. Keep an eye on your coworkers. If they're not drinking water, remind them to. I had a heat exhaustion event in the Imperial Valley. It was 124 degrees at the official temperature at the airport nearby, which is measured at 5 feet off the ground and in the shade. There wasn't any sun where I was working. We were staking center line of a new route. And when we got to the truck, we stopped and got water and kept going. And the chief recognized that my rear chainman was losing it. He fell over against the truck, and I'd already turned and walked away and started heading out to the next stake. So all of a sudden, this was Caltrans 4-man crew back in the day. So the gunner went to be my rear chain. The chief went to be the gunner. My rear chain is in the cab of the pickup truck, or cab of the truck with the AC on, drinking water and having to tell the chief every minute, I'm still okay. I'm okay. I'm alive. And after another 1,000 feet, I started yelling incoherently at my rear chainman because my brain was starting to shut down. So It's serious. At that point, the rear chain, he just grabbed his radio and called the chief and said, Rob's done. Come get us. This is serious stuff. Okay. Got to have safety standards around your workplace. Okay. If you're working at heights, do all these things. Right? If you have a fall restraint system, that keeps you from going over. If you have a fall arrest system, that's a thing that will stop you once you've fallen. There should be some kind of rescue procedure because Trent's pretty strong, but I think it's going to take more than Trent and George and Steve to lift my fat butt back up if I'm halfway down a cliff on a fall arrest system. When I was first teaching at community college in San Diego County, the classes were on Saturday. I got a call on Friday night, and one of my students, who was a high steel iron worker, called and said, I'm not going to be in class tomorrow. I hope to be back in next Saturday. And the concerned teacher in me said, come on, man, this is a big chunk of the class because these classes were 6 hours long. What's going on? And he said, I went in the hole yesterday at work. And for the iron worker, what that means is he fell. And he had expected, I said, okay, tell me what happened and why so we can share this when you get back with the rest of the class so they don't make the same mistakes. He expected to be working on the ground, so he was wearing his old, comfortable, well-worn boots with crappy tread. And somebody else called in sick, and the boss said, hey, I need you on the 6th floor. So rather than go back to his truck and change out of the comfortable, well-worn, treadless shoes, treadless boots, he just went up and didn't think about his footwear. And he was on the edge of the beam on the 6th floor, and his foot slipped, and he went over. And as he was falling, he remembered somebody that he worked with when he was brand new that said, if you ever fall, windmill your arms like you're trying to fly. And he did, and he caught the 5th floor as he went by, and it was enough of a pivot to flip him into the space of the 4th floor of the building, and he landed on the 4th floor concrete because that deck had already been poured and finished. Otherwise, he would have gone to the deck, to the ground. So footwear is important. Some would say essential. Right? So luckily we don't work much on high steel, but still watch where you're working. So I can understand the guy on the ladder, but I think the other guy is on a footstool on the bed of a pickup truck and probably really doesn't need to be there. So how about this guy? I'm not sure if you can tell, but the aluminum ladder that he's on is in a swimming pool full of water, and he's using an electric drill with a cord, and the cord runs down into the water and then across the pool and out of the water. So all kinds of things going wrong here, right? If you're working in remote locations, Dewberry Surveyor Safety Handbook is really good. Pre-plan, communicate the plan. If you don't have cell service on site, check in and out. Let somebody know. And let them know when they should expect your checkout, right? What's your vehicle equipped with? What's the difference between two-wheel drive and four-wheel drive? With two-wheel drive, you can drive into a muddy field and get stuck. With four-wheel drive, you can drive way the hell out in the middle of a muddy field and get stuck, right? Do you have a first aid kit? Is it fully equipped? If you got multiple crews, maintain communications and don't get caught out. There are emergency little mylar foil emergency blankets, they call them. And I think you can get them for about $1.99 at the like Harbor Freight or some kind of surplus store. They weigh a half an ounce. You got plenty of room in your survey vest to put them in there and have them with you. If you get stuck outside, you could end up in a very cold situation. Trent, how hot does it get out there in Las Vegas in, say, November in the daytime? Or January in the daytime, for that matter.
Yeah, during the daytime, we'd be probably 80s, 75.
In the 80s.
Yeah.
Balmy 80 degrees.
Yeah.
And overnight?
Right. Could be 35, 45, depending on the day. Yep.
Yeah. So you could have a 50-degree temperature swing.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Those blankets work well. Obviously I use them with running, and because they're easy to just, like you say, real aluminum, almost like aluminum foil, but they put off some heat when you wrap them around you, that's for sure. So, and they're super inexpensive and fold up to nothing. So
yeah,
like a business card.
Right. And then you should have some kind of tools. I found this one. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. It's a little bracelet, which I'm not a jewelry kind of guy typically, but
that is
all
cool.
right. Here's a bracelet with a built-in blade and paracord. So maybe you could help yourself out with that. You know, somebody mentioned pliers earlier. Here's the whole set, right? And you never know when an entrenchment tool will come in handy. But you know, if you need to go out somewhere and dig for something, some monument somewhere, this might be enough, right? Especially if you got a long hike on you. Other hazards, right? All these things are stuff that'll ruin your day. Make sure if you're using a chisel or a gad, which is a big, typically about 2-inch diameter chunk of steel with a chamfer ground top like a chisel on one end and a sharp pointy end that you can pound into very hard dirt to give yourself a fighting chance of getting a pipe in the ground. One of my coworkers decided that the mushrooming on the top of the gad wasn't really quite ready to grind off, and didn't do it before they went out to the field or at the end of the previous day. And at some point during the day, while he was banging on a big gad, a chunk came off that weighed about just about the same as a 22 slug. And when they got to the ER and the doctor looked at it, he asked, "Were you shot with a 22 pistol or something?" And when he pulled it out, he found no, it was steel. It wasn't lead. So it was definitely not a firearms related incident, but a big chunk of steel that busted off when he hit the gad with a 12-pound sledge and went about 180 miles an hour through his Levi's like he was wearing nothing, and about 3/4 of an inch into his thigh. And from what I understand, it was not one of the most pleasant sensations. Okay. Are your hammer handles cracked? Are the heads secure? When I was new, I was driving a stake to grade, and I was using instead of a regular hammer, I had a roofing hammer, which has a hatchet on one side and a hammer on the other, because that way I didn't need to take a machete. I could use the hatchet side for cutting brush, cutting line. And as I was pounding in a stake and the chief was standing directly in front of me on the upswing, the head let loose from the handle, and it went right between the chief's legs, and he, I guess, had a just amazing reaction of the human mind and eye. He jumped up on his toes just as it came through and did not hit him, but it would have had a very unpleasant impact had it hit him. So make sure that your hammerheads are securely attached to the handles. Keep your cutting tools sharp. Keep others out of your swing arc, right? Airborne threats. Poison oak smoke is bad. Valley fever is bad. All these things are bad, right? If you're in a very dusty or smoky area, use some kind of breathing protection. Right? This is about valley fever. Yeah, stay upwind from grading operations. Working near power lines. When I was in Caltrans headquarters working on the Caltrans survey manual, we had to rewrite chapter 2 on safety because one of our guys ran a 25-foot aluminum Hickson rod up through an oak tree to get a topo shot, and didn't realize there was a 12 kV power line over the top of that tree. And I don't know if he contacted the line itself or it was just close enough that it arced. But he was electrocuted and life flighted off to the hospital. And I think he was in intensive care and then in for surgeries and a lot of rehab and everything for about 9 months. But for the next 9 years, everybody called him Sparky. So there's power line safety training. I think it's still on the headquarters land surveys site for Caltrans under study materials, because it needs to be out there. Railroads. Got to have railroad staff lookout. You got to have your safety training. Don't go near a railroad without it. Lifting. Anybody ever use a Scan Station 2 from Leica? I went to work with the postdoctoral researchers from UC Davis on the MacArthur Maze collapse in the Oakland area about 2000. I don't know. When was that, Steve? 8, 9, 7, somewhere in there. And these two postdocs were trying to figure out how to get this 45 or 50-pound scan station out of its carrying case and onto the tripod to scan. And I said, hey, let me help you with that. And I reached down with one hand and grabbed the handle, and with the other hand, I just kind of supported the base through the arc. And in one big motion, I pulled the scan station out of the box and put it up on the tripod, and then secured the mounting screw. And these postdocs looked at me like I was a survey god because I did this all one-handed. It was quite good for my ego and my impression on these postdocs. What they didn't realize was I couldn't lift that arm for about a week. So, safety around others, right? In California, we have surveyors' right of entry. Don't insist on it. My old boss was doing a survey, and somebody showed up with a shotgun and said, "What are you doing here?" And he said, "Leaving." Yeah, so all kinds of crazy stuff can happen. Guard yourselves, guard your equipment. Here's one of the guys that I like to have around guarding my equipment. He's the guy with the belt-fed machine gun. So, near and on water, right? All these things can be tough for you. So, what's wrong with this? This could be many times safer if he was just standing on the pavement side of that curb instead of the riprap side of that curb. You know? What about this? A drift boat, which is fine. At least it's got braces, but they're standing up in it trying to do the RTK on a tall pole. And just a guess, I think George could probably confirm that water's probably a bit cold, don't you think? Because that's ice down there along the far shore and the near shore, right? Whose idea was this? Right? You ever seen one of these? Use those instead of putting your people at risk. Okay. George, do you remember the story of the Larissa M?
Vaguely.
You remember Chuck Aiken?
I believe so.
Up in Alaska. Chuck and his crew were surveying. And I'll just let you guys read this.
Yeah.
But they were way the hell out on the Aleutian chain. The closest port was 120 miles away. They were 1,300 miles from Anchorage. And just so you get a little glimpse of what's what, this is the last of the Aleutians that is U.S. You go beyond that, you're in Russia. Here was the island the guys were surveying on, and here's Adak, 120 miles away. Anchorage is way up in the north, or in the upper right corner. And about halfway is Dutch Harbor, where if anybody watches that Deadliest Catch, this is where they're typically going out of with the crab pots. So they're, what I would definitely say is way the hell out there, right? They were camping. They were basing out of a 50-foot fishing boat. And at 3 p.m., they called for the captain of the fishing boat to come get them. The captain and the cook motored along in a 15-foot skiff with 12-foot waves. Now, I'm no super mathematician, but the difference between 12-foot waves and a 15-foot skiff seems pretty small to me. Now, they hit a rock with the propeller of the skiff and the motor died. And as things happen up in Alaska, not only were the winds strong, but the current was flowing and they were swept away. Now, the entire crew of the fishing boat consisted of the captain and the cook. And the survey crew was on the island surveying. So the boat was still at anchor, the 50-footer, and off go the captain and the cook on a tour to Gilligan's Island. So luckily they had oars. They rowed the boat around the rocks and missed the reef. But he called back to the surveyors and says somebody has to get to the Larissa M and radio for help. These guys had the boat, had the skiff. The surveyors were referred to as a pretty resourceful group. The captain believed the BLM crew, contract crew, would be able to cobble something together to reach his fishing boat. So they cobbled together a raft out of boards, crab buoys, fishing net, whatever they could find along the beach of this island in the middle of freaking nowhere. And they paddled out to the Larissa M. Took them a little over 7 hours to find the materials, build a boat, and paddle out to the boat offshore. That's amazing as far as I'm concerned. Once they got there, they had to figure out how to operate the radio, because I don't think they'd been trained on it. So how bad a situation could this have been? Probably pretty bad. It was 52 hours after they hit the rock, the Coast Guard rescued the cook and the captain. So a little over 2 days. They were adrift off the Aleutians with nothing. Right? All they were doing was running from the boat to the shore to pick up the surveyors and go back to the boat. This could have gone sideways really bad. So, how do we improve the big picture? We do all this stuff. How do we improve daily? Is we think safety all the time. Always use your PPE. And if things don't go exactly as you were planning, you may need to stop and readjust those plans. What can we do? If you want to be thinking about it, have safety in all your meetings. Just a little safety moment to get the meeting started. be on the lookout for potential risks and make sure that you conduct your safety training and you conduct it in a manner that you're not just going through the motions. It's everyone's responsibility. Know what you're doing before you get to the field. Do all this stuff. Raise concerns like the gentleman who reported the near miss. Good move. If you are the person who refuses to wear your hard hat, your work boots, or your high vis, change your attitude or change your career. If you got somebody like that, change their attitude or change their career. You got safety concerns with your employer, talk to them. Celebrate success. My team in San Diego, when I was in the field, we were part of, I think we were running like 6 or 7 crews for most of the period of time. And we got to 1,000,000 no lost time injury hours, 1,000,000 hours of work. That's pretty good. Oh, sometimes you got to break the rules to be safe. At a large transportation agency that shall go unnamed, surveyors requested backup cameras be fitted on their trucks. And backup cameras are an IT item. So it was going to have to go through an IT feasibility study and then an IT concept paper, then a feasibility study, and blah, 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 and then be sent out for bid. And somebody just said, screw this, and found backup cameras built into license plate frames at Costco for $30. And everybody bought their own for their truck, for their cruise trucks. And they Bluetoothed into cell phones. So when you were going to back up, you just put your cell phone and opened the app, and it turned on the camera, and you could see that you weren't going to back over anybody. So sometimes break the rules to make things safer. Here's resources for you. Safety tailgate safety meeting guide from CLSA, and there's there's links in this. There's a bunch of things out there. I mentioned the Dewberry's Surveyor's Guide. That's really good. If you're concerned about safety, there's Google it, YouTube it. There's got to be something. Other opportunities, presentations like this, first aid and CPR training. Who's got CPR training on your crew, Trent?
Yeah, we do we have OSHA 10s and OSHA 30s as well. So, and then CPR.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
But yeah, and it's both people on a crew get CPR training.
Yes.
That's good, because if the one guy who has it goes down,
exactly,
what's the other guy going to do? Kickstart him like is a Honda 250R or something? Are there legislative changes that we can make? Right? Who knows? one of the keys is, does your talk match your walk? Now, how do I know about all this stuff? Because I've been racked up a bunch of times. I've done so much stupid crap, it would take this much time and more to describe it all. And I survived most of them, and I've been hurt a few times, and it sucked. So endeavor to do better. Keep your safety as a mindset. If safety is not your first thought, might be your last. That about does it.
Look at that. You get 5 minutes for Q&A. I was trying to keep up with some of the links and type them in as you went, but once you throw me the PowerPoint, everybody will have a lot.
I'll throw that into into Dropbox for you.
Sweet.
Right on, dude.
Questions, comments? There was a couple of things we brought up over the chat along the way, but obviously the safety tailgate guide, that'll be a great one. George had mentioned about having, a good first aid kit, which should be a staple in every truck. At this point, snake chaps, obviously it's cooler at the moment, but another month or two, they're going to be sunning themselves. So George has got his hand up there. Go for it, George.
So being pretty much raised in the Midwest, I found out I was not susceptible to poison ivy. I could walk through that stuff all day and not even get an itch. Came out here, got sent to a job from Reno over to the Placerville area. Didn't give a thought to it. Oh my God, poison oak. I was a rashy mess for about 2 weeks. So there was no way I was getting comfortable. By the time I got comfortable, my boss wanted me to go back there and finish the job. I told him, no, I'd rather go to unemployment. I had poison oak in places I don't even want to think about having stuff like that. And by the time you realize it, it's too doggone late.
Yeah.
The only thing that I managed to pull off was we took care of my clothes well enough that my wife didn't get it.
Oh, nice.
Oh, that's good.
Yep.
I would have really been in trouble there.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. So
good stuff, Rob.
It's just if this keeps one person on the call, if it stops you from doing something stupid or makes you slow down and say, you know what, I don't need to drive 80 miles an hour on the way to this job site, and keeps you from getting hurt.
I think you had done this one before. You had even done it for one of our chapter meetings, but you had talked about you were going to save like 27 seconds or something, right? Over the time of between driving 65 and 80 miles an hour, right? And it was like, by the time you got to the end of your destination, you saved, 27 seconds or something, right? When you correlate it to that, the time you saved just by speeding 65 versus 80 really hits you home.
Have things changed since I was in the field? I mean, it used to be when you went to the office, you loaded your truck and you drove to the job and you were paid for that time, and you got paid for that time that you were driving back to the office too. Yeah. Why hurry?
Right. Yeah. That's still the same.
Doesn't make sense.
Yep.
And another thing is when you look at somebody that's speeding like that, if you're speeding like that, the question is, at what time this morning were you late?
Yeah.
It's not that you're late to get to the office, it's that you're late to leave home. You're late to get your, eat your breakfast or get out of the shower or get your butt out of bed, And one of the guys that I worked with at Caltrans, um, he was my gunner when I was a chief, and I thought, oh, I want to call and lead and talk to somebody and have him have him remember to get whatever it was. And I asked, I called, and he answered the phone at 5:30 in the morning, and our show time was 6:15 for a 6:30 start. And I started laughing, and I said, I thought you'd be there. He goes, oh yeah, I'm here. I got the coffee going, reading the paper, doing the crossword. And I said, okay, well, remember to grab something because we're going to need that. If you could throw that into my basket, then I'd appreciate it. He goes, oh yeah, no problem. And so I finished up my stuff and I went to work. And on the way down, I thought about it and asked him, how long have you been coming in early? And he said he lived out in Hamul, and it was about a 45-mile drive for him to get in to the office. And he got on the highway and he was running late. And so he pushed it hard. And he hauled ass all the way into the office and got in it pretty much right at the time we're supposed to head out. And he told me that was like in 1976. And this would have been in like 99. And I said, Jesus, what changed? He goes, the CHP officer that pulled into the yard behind him. And the guy got out of his car and said, you're lucky you are here, or I would drag your ass to jail. And Carl asked him, well, where did you see me? And he said, I first saw you in Hamul. So the CHP officer was behind him for 45 miles.
Wow.
And he said, you will not do this again. And at that point, Carl changed up the way he did things, and he came into the office and he made the coffee for everybody and did all his stuff that he would normally do at home. He did in the office. So he was already there.
Nice.
So
cool.
Thanks, everyone. Hope this was helpful. And
always, yeah, I love starting January with business and safety for sure to kind of set the tone for the year. So I appreciate you doing this one as always.
Yes, I'm Luis Ramos. I have a tip that will help out everyone.
Please.
One of the things that I practice a lot is that on my cell phone, I have the 5 emergency family members just in case anything happens. And every time I get to the field, my cell phone, I don't leave the password on.
Oh, nice.
If I lose the cell phone, I lose the cell phone. The heck with it. But safety is more important. So as soon as anybody grabs the cell phone, the emergency pops out. All of my numbers that are emergency, just in case anything happens. But I'm always with my son. But God forbid anything happens, the 5 numbers are there, emergency family members, and they could get notified. They could call them anytime.
Yeah,
so that's something
good.
that I want.
Yeah, that's huge. That's a great tip.
One of the guys I know with this firm in Southern California, he has company shirts for everybody. And they're kind of I don't know what you call them, the light blue denim. But on the cuff, the person's blood type is on there.
Oh, wow. Very cool.
So
I bet you I know who you're talking about. That's awesome. I love that.
Luis, that's great addition.
Yep.
I like that. So
all right. Well,
I hope others will watch this and take some of this to heart.
hopefully. Yeah, and then next week we have Young Surveyors Network. We're going to talk about the new YSN mentoring packet, and so that'll be next Monday. We got roundtable starting up tomorrow, and then we got wisdom as well this week. So busy week this week. It's good stuff.
Oh, one more thing.
Yeah, go for it.
One more thing. Yeah. Another thing I have on my cell phone is that I leave my notifications on for all my family members. So if you have an iPhone, they could know where you at all the time. So that's something that you know you can also use. So it's a safety thing. You never know. Anything could happen. God forbid. You know.
Yeah, it's perfect for the small shops. That's perfect. Yeah. Love it.
All right, guys.
Have a great week. Thanks, Rob.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you,
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.